This is not a ride-sharing video. This is not a ride-sharing video. What up, folks? Once again, it is your boy Tim, the handsome liberal. Today, I can only make the promise that I typically make from any of the audiences I've been with. Now, there's no denying that this will probably be a very controversial program, a very controversial topic, but I'm going to make the promise that I make on every single broadcast. I'm going to let the people speak. Now, that is assuming you can keep within your faculties and not say things that the TikTok gods are going to override yours truly on. I make it clear that I always observe and protect your right to free speech, regardless if you agree with me or not. It never means a damn thing. But today's topic will indeed be very controversial. Now, you see in the comments, or you see the title of the program is asking, should Dilbert be canceled? Now, Dilbert is a comic strip, and the creator of that comic strip, none other than a guy named Scott Adams, recently made some statements. Now, some of you folks may have never heard of these statements, so here goes. If I can get my equipment on, but I want you to hear this because it's making the rounds, but it's not making the rounds in regards to right-wing media. So here goes.
So if nearly half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll, not according to me, according to this poll, that's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have anything to do with them. And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away. Wherever you have to go, just get away.
Now, what he's talking about is a recent poll from Rasmussen, which asked several African Americans, do they agree with the phrase, it's okay to be white? Out of that group of people that were polled, 47% were not a fan of that phrase. They were not favorable to that phrase, which is why you hear him saying in the beginning, if this poll is correct, African Americans are a hate group. So I want to hear what you folks have to say on this, because I am a huge proponent of free speech. Nevertheless, this comic strip creator has been canceled. He's been in the Dilbert comic strip has been around for about 30 years. Well over 2,000 different newspapers and publications carry it. But because of this comment, he has been canceled by virtually all of them. Even his distributor of the comics has dropped him. If you've ever read a newspaper, particularly the comic strip, you've seen Dilbert. USA Today, New York Times, Washington Post, even the nationally syndicated publications carry that comic strip. So do you think he should have been canceled for those particular words? Do you see that as racist? Let's go straight to the comments. He's got enough money, he will be fine. Well, you could have said that 10, 15 years ago, yet he continued writing comic strips. He had enough money 10, 15 years ago. So clearly, it's not an issue of whether he will be fine. Kanye West will be fine. Hell, Donald Trump will be fine. But that's not stopping him from doing what he wants to do. So should he have been canceled? Is the rhetoric or the statements he made, do you see that as racist? By the way, Elon Musk of Twitter fame, the owner of Twitter now, immediately came to the defense of Scott Adams, this Dilbert creator. According to Elon Musk, it is the media that is racist. And he talked about First Amendment rights. So looking in the comments, the MAGA hat stuffed into the sunroof is sending me. Well, the whole purpose of the hat is to let MAGA know this is a MAGA-friendly program. I don't believe folks on the right, conservatives, Republicans, particularly MAGA, often get a fair shake in the media. So even though I lean left, that is my shining light in the middle of the night to know, let MAGA know. Anytime you're on my small ass corner of social media, you are always welcome here without any fear of being censored, banned, or blocked for your commentary. As long as the TikTok app will let you speak, I damn sure will too. Let's go straight to the box. And we'll start it out with Pendejo. I already know what that is. Pendejo, good afternoon and welcome back to the program. So what do you think about what this guy has said?
Always a pleasure, handsome.
Absolutely, absolutely. Good to have you back on. Do you see any issue with what he stated?
Of course, there's issue. It's they're DOS comp retards. You know DOS comp, the
No, I
book.
don't. Wait. What is DOS
It's the
comp?
book. It's the book that they all read growing up in South Africa, the Hitler Manifesto.
No, I have not
Um,
heard about that.
yeah. That's the book that they all grew up on. DOS comp. It's DASKEMF. I thought you definitely that's one of their favorite books.
Okay, well, I don't
You
want to
know,
go too deep into the publication. I don't, as folks are saying, that publication mentioning that can get you banned. But
oh,
um,
okay.
what about his notion that, if 47%, according to this Rasmussen poll, are not a fan of the phrase "it's okay to be white"? So he's basically saying if 47% of African Americans do not like, folks being white, he's equating that to African Americans not liking whites and saying that they are indeed a hate group and that whites should get away from them. How do you see the phrase "it's okay to be white"? Do you have any trouble with that phrase?
Sure, he's just trying to turn it around. I mean, the number one question is, would he care to be treated the way people of color are treated? That's just the number one question. Would you trade spots? Do you think it's okay to get beat up by, indiscriminate police or, just being treated unfairly when you wanted to buy a house? Now it's kind of, not as much, but those are the kind of things that he doesn't look at. There's still prejudice around.
Well, you got a lot of folks who believe that the playing field for African Americans now in 2023 is equal and that there are no misgivings to being black anymore. There's nothing holding you back. How do you
No,
respond to somebody who would suggest that, you got civil rights, slavery is 200 plus years ago. What are you still complaining about now? How would you respond? Because I get it all the time on the program.
okay, the elephant in the room. White privilege still exists. And the biggest symbol of white privilege is the state of Utah. They don't want to talk about multiple marriages. They just want to go ahead and say, "Oh, we're white and we can do this." You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
Nobody wants to get into that corner. You know, eminent domain, redistricting. That's all white privilege.
Well, but if, in regards to the state of Utah, if you're talking about multiple marriages, is that same privilege not available to an African American?
Yes,
Then it's
but
not
it's
a privilege for
illegal.
whites, then, is it?
It's an illegal privilege, is what I'm trying to say. It's not legal in the United States to have multiple marriages, but they do it, and so because they do it, they're following their God. They wanted a state. They got their state.
Yeah, but the point I'm trying to make is if they are doing something that an African American can come to Utah and do as well, how does that equate to white privilege if you're admitting a black person can do the same thing?
I don't know if a black person can do the same thing because it is illegal in the United States. We're talking about doing something illegal. I'm just saying
Okay.
that the state is doing something illegal and not talking about it, and that's their privilege.
Okay,
You
I get
know,
what you're saying. I get
You
what you're
know,
saying.
go,
Before I'm
go
moving
ahead.
on, I want you to hear. I want you to hear something else he said because you were talking about the differences. Now, this is a clip from none other than a Breakfast Club, but it is a clip of this same guy talking. There's no video of his face, but it is his voice. I want you to hear this. Let me hear him.
So I realized, as you know, I've been identifying as black for a while, years now, because I like to be on the winning team, and I like to help. And I always thought, well, if you help the black community, that's sort of the biggest lever. You can find the biggest benefit. So I thought, well, that's the hardest thing and the biggest benefit. So I like to focus a lot of my life resources in helping black Americans. So much so that I started identifying as black to be on the team I was helping.
Okay.
But it turns out that nearly half of that team doesn't think I'm okay to be white.
So you can identify for whatever.
So what do you think about what he's saying that blacks are on the winning team?
Oh, that's just his guilt coming through. You know, he feels guilty, so he thinks he has to do something. You know, he doesn't like the way blacks are portrayed. That's why he thinks he has to help them. You know, he thinks he's superior, and he thinks he's helping the inferior. You
Do you
know,
when you listen to his comments, do you really see this guy as somebody who was probably helping out the black community before this so-called poll came out?
no, no,
Okay.
not a chance,
Yeah.
not a
Yeah.
chance. He's trying to fool the other white people. You know what I'm saying? He ain't fooling nobody that can really listen with their ears. You
Yeah.
know, yeah. I mean, there's just so much colorism in the world today that it's some you remember, some you forget, but it's a colorized world, not just in the United States. It's a colorized world. You
Fair enough.
know.
All right. All right. I got to move it on, though. You know how we do. Appreciate you coming back on in here again. And the cards are appreciate the fireworks. Pendeo. Catch you on the next one. All right.
Thank you, man.
Look get in the comment section. Of course, with a topic like this, with visuals like that, make no doubt about it, I'm going to be probably called an Uncle Ruckus, an Uncle Tom, or a sellout probably 100 times before this program concludes. But I just wanted to play this because there are folks suggesting that the statements made by this Scott Adams guy, the creator of the comic strip Dilbert, are not racist. I would love to speak to someone from the right, someone that sees this in a different way, particularly differently than my last caller. But nevertheless, I will keep the box going. Tenacious still. And I see you in there, Backcountry Ninja. But okay, Tenacious still, I believe, a new program. By the way, folks, tap the screen, get your boy up to 10,000 likes. This is a MAGA friendly program. MAGA are my preferred guests, and nevertheless, liberals are welcome too. Good afternoon, Tenacious.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Are you on Bluetooth?
Yeah.
Yeah, you got a bad echo. You're going to put it on straight up because I'm hearing myself too much.
Okay, I'll probably back out and then request again.
Okay, go ahead and do that.
All right, no problem.
All right. All right. Looking at, we'll keep it moving. What was that? Backcountry Ninjas. See if it happened. Yes. What about the new Jim Crow laws in Mississippi? Elaborate on those. I have not heard of those. That says Chia Chemist. I would love to hear about that. What new Jim Crow laws are being implemented in the state of Mississippi? And it would not surprise anyone, at least particularly people of color, that those laws would start in Mississippi. But I would love to hear what laws you're talking about. Thank you for showing me to block you, says DJ Linda. Well, the fact that you wasted time typing that actually cheated you out of a few seconds. You could have blocked me earlier, but I appreciate the comment. You can't be helped because you voted against yourself. So good luck with that, dude. Well, it depends on who are you suggesting that I voted for that was a vote against my own interest. Looking in the comments, I don't know what's going on with Backcountry Ninjas, but it's freezing. So we'll go to the one and only Gangsta G-Ma. By the way, folks, this is a MAGA-friendly program, as I say every day, all day. I do not ban, block, or censor anyone that disagrees with the host. That doesn't mean a damn thing. I always protect your free speech rights in my little corner of social media. Nevertheless, liberals are welcome on the program as always. All right, let's make it happen with Gangsta Gma. Can't be helped. Okay, wait a minute. Scroll it up. I don't know. It looks like something might be wrong with the box.
My favorite raccoon. I had to joke with you.
What up? What up? How you doing, girl?
No, I'm fine. I haven't been on those lately because, I don't want to get, banana because, you have little crybabies on. You feel what I'm saying?
I feel you. So, are you aware of what this comic creator said?
The what?
The
You
comic
broke it.
creator, Scott. Did you hear the clip I played of this comic creator?
Not all of it, no.
Okay. Well, apparently the creator of the Dilbert comic strips
Oh, yes,
is
yes, yes. He is, ooh, he's the nasty, isn't he? He's just
well,
nasty.
he is suggesting that African Americans have such disdain, such hatred towards Caucasians that it is in the best interest of whites to move away and not be around black folks.
Well, I don't think we got disdain for him. I just think that some Caucasians are trying to take history away. And that's why
How so?
there's a lot of disdain, like taking the books away. They're trying to take Black history out. The kids can't even do a college course on Black history in Florida and stuff. You know what I mean? I don't think people got disdain for anybody. I just think that it's the racist ones are making it really bad for everybody.
Yeah. So do you see his particular comments as racist? Do you
Yeah,
see? Okay. All right. And
he
I
is.
see folks in the I
That
see
that that
folks
that
in the
man is beyond. That man is beyond. Right, you know what I mean? He wants to start crap.
Well, he certainly seems to be a bit unhappy. Now, I want to make it clear he's stating he got this information from a Rasmussen poll, and many folks would tell you Rasmussen leans right. So it's not Rasmussen is not considered a unbiased poll. I mean, he's taken a poll that is basically saying that black people do not like whites, and if blacks don't like whites, then African Americans are a hate group and we should stay away from it. That's what he's saying.
Damn. He said we're a hate
Yeah.
group? Holy shit.
Well, here, listen to it. If I can, I don't know. For some reason, my shit over here.
Half of all blacks are not okay with white people, according to this poll. Not according to me, according to this poll. That's a hate group. That's a hate group. And I don't want to have
Damn.
anything to do with them.
Wow.
And I would say, based on the current way things are going, the best advice I would give to white people is to get the hell away from black people. Just get the fuck away.
That's
Wherever you have to
crazy.
go, just get away.
See,
That's what
that's
he said.
crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy. And it's not, we're not a hate group. We're just standing on what we believe. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, come on. What, people are not blaming all, Caucasian people. It's just, it's the KKK and stuff. That's what we're fighting for. What we're fighting over, the hate, they're doing the new Jim Crow crap in Mississippi, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, according to him, he is saying that he is not a racist. And by the way, for you new folks who are tuning in wondering who this person is, his name is Scott Adams. He is the creator of the Dilbert comic strip. If you've ever purchased New York Times, USA Today, the comic strip has been around for about 30 years. So it's in over 2,000 different publications. So we all are familiar at
You
one
know what
point
it
or
is, though?
another. Go ahead.
You know what it is? It's like if you're pro-black, okay? Like my whole family's pro-black, but
Mhm.
they don't hate. They're pro-black. They
What
believe in
is it?
black
But let
marriages.
me ask you. Let me ask you a question. If somebody was pro-white, how would you take that?
That's not the same as being pro-black though.
How is
Like,
it different?
because because they believe in the hate that goes with it. We're not hating. We just like we just believe in like black businesses. We do the black businesses and everything else like that. You know what I mean? It's not being.
But you gotta admit that there are some African Americans that do not like white people that say they're pro-black. Also, you mentioned black businesses.
Mm,
How do you think we would view it? Say, for instance, if a white person wanted to have white-owned business on the front of their shop, or I support white businesses because we do this in the black community. Do you think there would be any issue with that?
I don't know. I don't know. I have black businesses, and I don't discriminate against nobody. I'm pro black, and I don't. I'm not being pro black. Don't mean that you're anti white though. I
Yeah,
like anybody. I like anybody that respects me. You feel what I'm saying? Now, if
right.
you come with me, and you say some crazy racist crap, I'm coming back at you. You know what I mean?
So
You, I'm
I
not
gotta move
racist
it
at
on.
all.
I gotta move it on. But I want to ask you one thing before I let you go. Is it possible to be pro-white and not racist?
I don't know because there's a lot of people saying they pro white and they be doing some fucked up shit though. You know what I mean? So it's just
Yeah.
I don't know. But I'm not white. I can't talk about the white people like that. I just know this that some of them are really damn nasty. I'm not saying all of them are. But believe me, I'm not.
You
I
do
have people
realize,
that
though, you do realize you're not saying all of them, just some. You realize that's the same thing they say about us. The ones I'm
they
not saying
probably
all
do.
black people. Yeah, you saying
They
exactly
probably
what he
do.
said.
That they probably do. But we're not like that. Well, I can't speak for everybody. I can't speak for the whole black community. I can speak for my family and stuff.
Right.
I'm not anti-white. I have businesses and I hire everybody. As long as you're cool people with me, I'm cool people with you. Now you're racist with me, I'm gonna fire back at you. You know what I'm saying?
Fair
I'm
enough.
not I just think that dude is kind of crazy, and I think that he just needs to mind his business and stay in his little lane and don't start
Well,
shit. You feel me?
all right.
But I
Always a
never
good
heard
talk.
of, but honestly, I never heard of pro white though. I heard that I know like they be saying white lives matter, but it's not white.
Oh,
It's
it's
going
very
against
similar.
Black
All right.
Lives Matter. You know what I mean?
Okay, I get it. I get it. All right, I gotta move it on. though. Appreciate
But
you
you have a
coming in
good
as
one
always.
though.
All right, good talk. Okay, in the comment section. I don't know if something's going on. There we go. Okay. Stop looking at color. Holy shit, I can't take it by. Frankie, this is actually in response to what someone said. Now, I understand that there is no shortage of folks who have become sick of every damn thing being made racial. I get it. But this is an actual person making a statement that is over a well-known publication. Should we ignore it? I mean, for real, should we actually ignore someone that is, you know, in 2,000 different newspapers, comic strips being read by children and things like that? Would it be in our best interest to ignore this guy who is actually on social media suggesting that white people should separate themselves from black? It's not yours truly, it's not the host that has come up with this. I'm just relaying the information, talking to the folks from an uncensored perspective, and asking you your opinion on it. But nevertheless, there are clips of this guy all over social media saying this shit. All right, going back to the box. Trust the art, not the artist. Fair enough, but yeah, I don't know if it works just like that alone. If you support, for instance, Disney. Disney is a good example of a business that's being canceled because of what they're doing on the side. Governor DeSantis is all over Disney. Trust the art, not the artist. All right, let's keep it moving. We'll go straight to Fault Blade 667. TikTok names all around, but tap the screen. Get your boy up to 25,000 likes. The algorithms tends to bring me more MAGA. This is a MAGA-friendly program. Liberals are welcome as well. Fault Blade, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Loud and clear.
Awesome. So I guess I saw this clip yesterday, what you're talking about with the Dilbert guy.
Right.
To be for one, in 2023, I don't know if anyone's reading comic strips that deeply. So I
Well,
can't.
they're out there. They may not be reading them, but they're still
True,
USA
true.
Today and all these big newspapers are still putting them in there, so they're in the paper.
Yeah, and I'm very aware of who this guy is. I mean, this is pop culture. I mean, 101. This is a pretty famous comic strip. I'm aware of it. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but on his views, his take there, that's the thing, because like you said, he's gotten this from some source that is not unbiased. Um,
Right.
but that's the thing I typically tend to notice with white people, and really not just white people. This is everyone. People go on very misleading information and accept that as fact from like just one read for some reason.
Yeah.
Um, and so I guess it's just very unfortunate that he's seen this poll and he's taking that as fact, or maybe he's not taking it as fact and he just decided to run his mouth with the camera in front of him, which is a bad idea. Um, yeah, I don't. I mean, we can choose.
But do you see his statements as maybe just being protective? If this much of this race does not like me, then it's safer to stay away. Or do you see what he said is outright racist?
Um, so it's the thing though. If the grounds for that statement are based on misleading information, uh, so whatever it is he could be thinking, it's not lining up with real life. Because I know a lot of black people who don't dislike white people, but we know that a lot of white people are misinformed, like the Dilbert guy. So
Well,
we have to
but I
keep that
mean,
in.
but let's be honest. Being African American, we all grew up probably in households that misinformed us in regards to white people. Like, for instance, most of the people I now hang around are Caucasian, and I know they're not all racist. They're not all rich. They don't all have great credit. I mean,
Yeah.
we've received a hell of a lot of stereotypes too, though. That's not something that's unique to them, is it?
Not necessarily, but I would say here's the thing: that there's always that difference of um what's the history behind each people's treating of the other person, you know? So
Yeah.
it's not, I wouldn't say it's right, it's correct to misinform people, but when you have a lot of history and then there's a lot of people trying to basically erase that history and say, hey man, let's just hold hands and say kumbaya and forget about all that, when there are people who are still alive who find it very difficult to do that
Yeah.
because of what they lived through.
So
um
let me ask you this, and this is in regards to what you often hear, particularly coming out of Florida.
mhm.
Is if you have a classroom that is diverse, you have whites, blacks, other children, and things in that classroom. Is it possible to teach the accuracies of U.S. history from a racial standpoint without making white children feel like you guys are bad people? Is it possible to teach that history accurately without, isolating or ostracizing white children?
I think it is. I think it is. But it part of it rests on white people's ability to just accept that there are people probably in their bloodline not too long ago who did some really bad stuff. Accept that, but know that it
Yeah.
isn't you, and know that you have the ability to change that and to be a better person than they
But
were in the future.
what if we find out? Let me give you an example. Let's say we're in a classroom and your grandfather did some Jeffrey Dahmer, John Wayne Gacy type shit. If
Mhm.
we're in a classroom and the teacher tells us about your grandfather, what are the chances that the other children are going to start criticizing you for what your grandfather did?
I mean, dude, I mean, I went to school, and they didn't teach everything because there's stuff I had to find out on my own after school, But when those moments came up, because they did teach about the bad shit that went on in Birmingham, what stuff that went on everywhere. It just wasn't as in depth. I mean, even in those cases, I never saw, any white people be like, "Oh my God." Oh, they never broke down in class and lost their minds and started crying, you know. So
Yeah.
apparently,
Well, but I'll give you a response in regards to not breaking down and starting crying. When you look at how history in this country is taught, it's taught in a way so that doesn't happen. For instance, we all learned about, say, the Holocaust in school.
Yeah.
You've seen bodies being dumped in pits and things like that. Now, we know there are all sorts of mass graves in this country of minorities, particularly in the Tulsa, Oklahoma City area after Black Wall Street. We know that stuff exists,
Yeah.
but you don't get taught that when you go to school. You don't get taught all of the intricacies of how horrible it was. I mean, so that might be why people are not crying and things like that, is because the hardcore details that you say learned from the Holocaust are not taught in regards to what we dealt with.
Yeah. I mean, so yeah, in that regard, you could say people are being spared. You know. So
Yeah.
it what are people really afraid of if we're not even getting what could be the whole truth of it, the more gruesome details? Then really, what are people of, like, it could be worse. You could be
They're
learning
afraid
about.
of they're afraid of exactly what you talked about, the gruesome details. If I teach the children a little bit, some of them are going to go on their own and study a little bit further and locate those gruesome details.
Yeah, I mean, it's that's the thing. It's easy to learn about. You could see that stuff about the Holocaust because for us that's a world away. But I see how people would have some sort of feeling, white people specifically, about teaching kids about stuff that happened here in America, and not 100 years ago, 90 years ago, 80 years ago, 80 or so, 70 years ago here in America. I could see how people would have a problem with teaching kids the gruesome details about that because that's not a world away. That's here, and it could easily happen if
Right.
people so
Yeah.
chose to make it happen.
Yeah.
That's the
Fair
whole.
enough.
That's
All
what
right,
people
I
are
got
really
to
afraid
move
of.
it on though. Go ahead. Go
I'm
ahead.
just,
Say that
I'm
again.
just saying that's what people are really afraid of. I think is once you start
Yeah.
peeling back those layers, you people will recoil. That it's natural. But again, like I said, I think that people can stomach it. People are just afraid of knowing the truth. People are afraid of knowing just how bad humans can be in general. We want to have this
Yeah.
outlook of we're so good and we can change and we can do better. But the moment the mask starts to slip a little bit, and you saw this with the Capitol 6 riot. Not the January 6th Capitol riot. Um,
Yeah.
the mask starts to slip a little bit, and we see what we're actually capable of, and that's what people are afraid
Yeah.
of.
Fair enough. All right, I got to move it on. This our first time talking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And thank you for having me on.
Come on back through. Absolutely a pleasure. Anytime you see me, free to come on back through.
Thank you.
All right, going back to the comments. And man, I started the program, this was going to be a topic of controversial nature. And I can tell from the numbers, I can tell from the comments and the participants that this topic is not resonating with all. I understand that. I totally understand that. But nevertheless, the man did say it. It is something being covered all over the media. And I wanted to come here from an uncensored standpoint and hear it from the folks how they felt. So every topic every day is not going to be the best, but yeah, I know there's some audience members are like, this is not the shit I signed up for or want to hear. Normally my audience is about twice, maybe even 3 times as large as it is now, but it is what it is. All right, going back to the comments, having a tough conversation. Yeah, this is certainly that. My question, and by the way, let me also add on that Elon Musk immediately stepped to the defense of the Dilbert strip creator, Scott Adams. Basically, Elon Musk is saying by canceling this guy, you're blocking free speech. Now, on my particular broadcast, I'm a huge proponent of free speech, and I don't believe folks should be censored. This is strong language that this guy said. So I don't know where I go with. I mean, he is literally preaching segregation. White folks get the hell away from blacks. But I am a proponent of free speech. So I want to ask you folks, do you believe his strips, based on his statements, his views, do you believe his strips should be removed from newspapers, not worldwide? We'll keep it going with it's a whole bunch of you guys. I didn't realize how many of you folks are in here, but okay, let's keep it moving. It's odd that the number participants are up. Okay, and I know I'm lagging. I don't know what the hell's going on there. Wendy, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. So I
Are you
am
on
a
Bluetooth?
no, I've got earbuds in. Am I
Well, how are
echoing?
you working with those? Yeah.
But
Okay. Can you hear me?
yeah, is that better?
Okay, I'll look in the comments. Yeah, okay, there you go. I can hear you now.
Yes. So I am a 51-year-old white woman. I grew up a military brat.
Mm-hmm.
When I say that we did
Okay.
not see color back in my day, we did not see color. It was a big melting pot. And if anybody remembers, do you remember the Coca-Cola commercial, like to teach the world to sing in perfect harmony? And, they're all standing
Yes.
hand in hand.
Yeah.
That was the era that I
Right.
grew up in. Why can't we go back to that?
Well, you think the 80s were more racial harmony in the 1980s than there is now?
Well, I mean, I think so, because back then you didn't hear people calling the N-word with the hard R. You didn't hear people calling white people napkins. I mean, we got to get away from this divisiveness.
Well, I would I would submit to you that in the 80s, before the era of social media, this stuff was happening, because if you go back to the 50s and 60s, you probably didn't hear it as much either. That doesn't mean it's not happening. It just meant that African Americans, due to power, access to, media, the fact that African Americans are now more authors, they make television. You got Oprah and Tyler Perry and all. They now have more of a vocal output. It's not that they weren't complaining about this stuff back then. For instance, Jesse Jackson and Al Sharpton have been complaining about the Confederate flag since the 60s. But if you look back on the 60s, people often ask, why was nobody complaining back then? It's because now they have the power. African Americans have the power to speak loud enough that their comments are not falling on deaf ears. But if you go back to the 1980s, there's no way I would believe that the police were treating African Americans better then than they do now. You got cops nowadays that are afraid to even deal with blacks because they think the level of accountability is going to be too damn high. That didn't exist back in the 1980s.
I understand what you're saying, Tim. I understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. But I don't.
Also, you mentioned being a military brat. Do you think the military had any race? Did your folks, or whatever the case may be, did you hear of any racism within the military?
No, because I can remember back in the day, my parents having get-togethers at the house playing bonko or whatever it is that they played, and backgammon, and there was people of all colors that my parents hung out with.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, if you listen to, say, for instance, the music industry, I was just
Mm-hmm.
listening to a clip online of African American R&B artist Stephanie Mills talking about how racist, say, MTV was back in the 1980s. You got a lot of my beloved Trump supporters who often are very critical of, say, Joe Biden with the crime bill, even in the 90s. Obviously, the war on drugs has been looked back upon as a really racist piece of legislation. All that was happening during the time you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of African Americans that are still reeling from the effects of the war on drugs, which started in that era you're discussing.
Yeah, I can't really speak on that. I mean, I guess I lived a sheltered life. I don't know.
That could
Um,
definitely. Yeah, if you're not, if you're lit, if for instance, I'm a middle child, and I told my mom until the day she passed away that I believe I got treated unfairly. Nevertheless, my older and younger brother are like, I don't see what the hell you're talking about. The point I'm trying to make is the folks who are doing better often have no clue of what it's like for the person that's doing worse. Like if I bring up, well, on Christmas, you bought them $200 worth of shit and you got me something for $50. My brothers didn't pay attention to the fact that I didn't get much. So the person that's doing well often does not know how bad it is for those who are not. So if you're white and you were not around blacks, it would make sense. I don't see where anything was wrong, because you obviously don't have that group of people to look up at and say they're doing way better than me. You were the guy at the top, so I could see where you could get that.
Yeah,
Did I lose?
I think, no, I'm here.
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, loud and clear.
I just think that the world today is a lot different than it was back then, and I would like to go back to the way it was back then, where we all treated people equally. No one was superior of another. I mean, can we not just all get along?
I do favor what you're saying. I would prefer it is the way you're stating as well. But I mean, there is two groups of people in this country, and I'm not talking whites and blacks. I'm talking the haves and have-nots. And the haves do not want us to get. They don't want us to be on their level. Now, in America, most of the haves are white. There's no denying most of the haves are white, just from the way our country was set up and the way the laws were set up. It was structured so that one group would do better. Well, most of those laws have been rescinded and no longer exist, but the tentacles of them, still have their effects. But nevertheless, it is a matter of have and have not. So when you say, can't we all get along, that would be like walking into a wealthy gala or something like that and telling the wealthy folks there, can't we all just get along? No, get your ass. No, get out. This is a closed event. So there are folks who do not want us to get along. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I really wish it would be the way you're talking about, but I mean, I say this all the time when it comes to, say making America great again. I get folks who will ask me, well, when was America great? Minorities ask that, because most of the folks that are in favor of the phrase make America great are not minorities. And you have minorities often say, well, when was America great? Well, being honest, if you are Caucasian, right now it's not as good as it used to be. I mean, let's just be honest. If I'm Caucasian, or say, for instance, yourself, if you wanted to be the principal of your local school, or maybe you wanted to be a lieutenant on the police force or a fire chief, if you go back in time, you didn't have to compete with all of these people that you do now. So for you being Caucasian, no, it is not as great as it is. Now, we all are in favor of equality. But when you're on top, equality is actually, it feels more like oppression, because I could show up to an interview and all of these folks that you now are taking interviews from, I never had to compete with them before. So you can see it from that aspect for why there would be no shortage of white folks saying right now in this day and age, things are not as well.
Yeah, well, I grew up putting your best foot forward. I know that there's a lot more competition in the workplace nowadays, but
Yeah.
not everyone's going to get the job. And just put your best foot forward, and if at first you don't succeed, try again.
Right, but think about the argument that people say, well, letting immigrants in this country, they take away jobs. Well, which definitely has some validity to it. It's increasing the supply, the supply and demand concept. All of a sudden, you got far more supply of people willing to do the job, and it brings down the cost of labor, brings down salaries. Well, we were the original issue before the immigrants coming from the southern border. Once you gave African Americans equality, you increase the supply of workers. And that is why a lot of folks are complaining. Some are even saying phrases like, they're not going to replace us. Have you ever heard of that phrase? You will not replace me?
No.
Okay. All right. Well, there are people saying that as well. Like, to the point where some folks are suggesting, in fact, this comic strip creator, I played a clip earlier where he is suggesting that blacks actually have privilege over whites now. Have you heard that at all?
No, because I don't believe that one race has superiority of over any other race.
What do you think
I
about
understand that there's majorities and minorities.
what do you think about affirmative action? Do you think that that is still needed, necessary in 2023?
Can you elaborate on that?
Affirmative action was put in place because African Americans, minorities were held back, women too, not necessarily just blacks, but a lot of different classes of minorities were held back from entering a host of career fields for so long that corporations had to actually deliberately hire a certain percentage of them just to equal the employment pool. Do you think that that type of hiring practice is still necessary in 2023?
I don't know about the affirmative action part, but I mean, when you were talking about immigrants coming over, there are certain jobs that just one particular person is not going to do. You know what I'm saying?
Give me an example.
If you don't want to scrub toilets, if you don't want to scrub toilets for a living, you're just not going to do it. But someone
Yeah.
who really needs a job and wants to get a start will start scrubbing toilets. I mean, it's that
Well,
simple.
but before we had
I
an
mean, I
immigrant,
can't.
go ahead.
I mean, I can't be a roofer. I don't know the first thing about putting a roof on a house. I can't be, you see where I'm going with my examples.
Yeah, I get your point. I get your point. All right, well, Wendy, I appreciate you coming on. This is our first time talking as well, right?
I think so.
Okay,
I
well,
listen to your lives a lot.
okay, well, it's a pleasure having you on. Come on back through anytime. All right,
I wish you a
looking
great
in
day, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Now, it's somewhat of a delay there. I like that. This is not a fan favorite topic, so to speak, but this is what was stated. This is what the guy said. It's being covered all over the damn media, so I figured I'd come here and hear from the folks, but it is a racial topic. Now, I do believe, because my audience is mostly right wing, that's what I tend to enjoy talking to, particularly MAGA. I do believe if an African American said something as controversial like this about whites, I think a certain part of my audience will still be here, but I've lost a lot of members because this is not the same type of conversation. All right, looking in the comments, Displaced Redneck, love the name. Having the hard conversations is what it's all about. Well stated. That is true. That, when folks talk about us needing to come together and unite, I believe it is done more from conversation than silence. Now, there are plenty of memes and videos floating around. I think it was either Denzel Washington or Morgan Freeman that suggested that the best way to get past racism is to stop talking about it. I wholeheartedly disagree with that. I don't believe any atrocity will go away if you stop talking about it. Imagine what would happen in the Catholic Church if they stopped talking about the abuse that was going on to children there. Talking about things brings it out into the open and forces folks to address it. You think if Martin Luther King had to just simply stop talking, folks would have just corrected the error of their ways? No. So I don't know why anyone, particularly an African American, would believe that we would be further along if we just stopped talking about it. So I just never could agree with that. But maybe I'm getting it wrong, and I'll invite you guys in the comments. And by the way, who said that in the comments there? Lewis. Farrakhan makes statements like that and worse all the time. That is true. However, Farrakhan has long been canceled. Where do you see Farrakhan at? On anything public? You see him doing any television ads? You see him in any newspapers? He has long been canceled. He can't get on television or anything. I'm from Chicago. For you folks who may be familiar with Chicago, 74th and Stony Island is where I lived. And when I'm giving you that address or when I'm giving you that street, I mean because I could literally sit on my porch with a heavy rock and hit the minister of Louis Farrakhan's headquarters there in Chicago. I lived across the street from it from like 15 plus years or more. So I'm quite familiar with the guy. In fact, they parked the buses for the Million Man March on my block. It took off from my block. All right, going back to the box. We'll try it again with Tenacious. I appreciate you holding on. And we'll try to make it continue. I don't get, for some reason, TikTok today. Might be because of the topic at hand. Tenacious, good afternoon.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing
Can you
good.
hear me
So,
now?
loud and clear. So do you think there was any issue with what this man said?
Uh, yes and no. I mean,
Elaborate.
he's gonna say what he's gonna say because this is American right.
Right.
Whether or not people agree with it, it's literally on them.
Do you think
But
he should have been canceled for it?
no, I mean, if we're canceling people, we need to cancel Joe Biden then for saying that
What has
poor
Joe
people
Biden
are
said? What has Joe Biden, in your opinion, said that makes him cancel worthy?
poor people are just as bright and just as intelligent as white people, and you need to have a turban to work at 7-Eleven.
He
He said a
did
lot of
say that.
racist shit.
He did say that stuff. I guess you're right if you look at it from that point. But oddly enough, based on what you said, whether it's poor people or folks wearing turbans, in your opinion, why is it that folks who are poor and particularly wearing turbans supporting Biden over Trump?
I mean, there's also people that are wearing turbans that are supporting Trump. There's
But you do
minorities
get
that
what
are
I'm
supporting
saying.
Trump.
You get what I'm saying that the overwhelming majority of Muslims support Biden, not Trump.
I think I don't know. My opinion is that's not true. I
You
think
believe that
majority of
Trump has more.
Americans are in the
You
middle.
believe that. Wait a minute. You believe that Trump has more support from Middle Easterners than Biden.
No, what I'm saying is I think majority of voters are in the middle, and a lot of them are lost
What
right
do you
now.
mean by lost? Explain. What do you mean by that?
But like, what good candidate have we had since John F. Kennedy?